So this month's tutorial is all about 3 principles that I try to always keep in mind to make my poses more dynamic and give it more life and movement. And these 3 principles are called silhouette, line of action, and squash and stretch. And please, if you watch this tutorial, please keep in mind that I never ever learned this anywhere, so everything is self-taught, and I think I only know basic stuff about it, but I will explain you how I use it whenever I draw something and how you can use it too. If you wanna know even more about it, I can suggest you take courses about it. You will also learn about all of those principles in animation school. I never took those courses, but I learned it along the years of illustrating. But yeah, okay, I just wanted to get that out of the way, and now let's jump right into the tutorial. Okay, so I just prepared a couple of really quick silhouette drawings. They all took me under a minute each. Basically what a silhouette is, it's just the shaded in version of your pose. And I always use it to just figure out it's a quick way for me to figure out the best pose for the character that I draw. Before you start with drawing your final character, what you can do is just draw a couple of silhouettes, so you pay less attention to the details and just see if the pose is clear and clean. And ideally, you can read the pose using the silhouette. You can also use it to see where the line of action is, which we will talk about later. Yeah, I suggest you do a couple of these and then see which silhouette reads best, is the most expressive and the most easy to read, and then you can use this to continue with your final illustration. So silhouette is a really small part of the process. For me at least. There's one thing you should pay attention on, and that is that the poses are clearly readable using the silhouette. If you have this one shaded in, so now you don't really know how the character stands, so creating a little hole is much better to read, and it's also better later when you draw the final illustration. It's just small things like that make the character's pose more expressive. So this is all I do for the silhouette. It's not much, it's just a very small part. And now let's move on to the line of action. Okay, another concept that made all the difference when I started implementing it is the line of action. And this is also a key concept to making a character more dynamic and to give it more life. Most commonly we use a C and an S curve. Here you can see a simple C curve, and this basically, it is just a straight line of action. And you can already see that this has way more life than this one. So this one right here is very dynamic, and this one is way more boring and stiff. So this already gives a lot of life. I have 2 examples where I started implementing it. It is almost the same pose, and the yellow line is the line of action. So you can see that instead of just having the character stand in a very stiff position, I paid attention to the line of action first and then aligned my body onto it. And you can already see those characters have way more life to them than a plain pose without a line of action. There's also, so those are both C curves. I can now give you an example of what an S curve would look like. I'm just gonna do a very quick sketch. So this is an S curve, and then if I want to draw a character on it, I'm just gonna do a very quick one. I always start with a line of action first, and then I draw the body on top, so you can really align it. And if you have a spine, it is always part of the line of action. So this really helped me. This really helped me in the beginning when I when I didn't really know how to use the line of action. This really, really helped me keeping this in mind. So it is not used as often, and most of the time we use a simple C curve. But when you, for example, if you draw really flowy characters, so for example floating characters or even mermaids, for mermaid for example, you can use the S curve for the tails, everything that looks a little bit more flowy. But in general, C curves are easier, and also simple is good, guys. So this is how I use the line of action. The next and last concept I want to show you is squash and stretch. And this is my favorite to do and to draw. And it is a concept that comes from animation. The easy way to show you what I mean with squash and stretch is if we use a flour sack. This is also something that comes from animation. And so here is a simple flour sack without a squash and stretch. So you can see it already has a little bit of life, but I prepared something here. Here I drew this stiff flour sack, but with squash and stretch in mind, and I can quickly show you what I mean. So what squash and stretch is that on opposite sides is either a squash or a stretch, and what this does is it gives more visual interest, more movement, and it also helps you with creating more dynamic poses. And so for example, this here is a squash and here is the stretch. Okay, so this right here is the stretch and this is the squash. Here again is the stretch, here is the squash, and same goes with this one. And you can already tell that it has a lot of emotion just by creating those folds and stretches. So for example, this one looks like it is stretching to the side. This one right here looks very sad because this is actually all a stretch. It's a very long stretch, and it kind of is like having the head down, and it looks very sad. Whereas this one right here looks very excited because this whole side right here actually is a stretch, and here is the squash. And I also have already drawn for you one example how I like to use it. So for example, in human bodies, you can use a squash and stretch as well. You can always play with the different sides, and I'm going to show you a couple of more examples of how you can use it. So another very drastic squash and stretch pose, which I never draw, but it is very good for you to see what I mean, is if we draw a human who is standing like this. Maybe that is okay, like this, and then you have the arms here. I have to elongate the legs a little bit. Having the head down, and then something something like this. So yeah, so something like this, and then you would also have a very long stretch right here, and then the squash right here. I hope you can see what this is. This is like a human bending over. Another way of how I like to implement it into my drawings, which is a little bit more common than this one. So for example, when you draw legs, you, like this is the body, and then here are, no, wait. So for example, so this is the body, and then here are the hips, and then you draw the legs. Is what I like to do is, I'm gonna do a very stiff pose, but I just want to show you the squash and stretch that I do. Well, is to draw something like this. Okay, so here again, it just creates a little bit of more visual interest. You have the squash right here and the stretch here. So this is just like a little example of how you can also use it, which is not as obvious as these ones right here, but still very, very helpful. This concept can also help you when you draw. So let's say you draw hair or something. You can, like, you draw a head, so like this, and then let's just not think about the face now. So you have like straight hair on this one side, and then you can use like a little more of a wavy thing on the other side. And this is also like, it's almost not really noticeable, but you have a stretch here and a squash here. And this just again simply gives more life to the character. One more example, because I love this concept so much. But another way you can use it is when you draw a pose like this. Okay guys, my battery just died. But I actually wanted to show you something that you can also, like a simple pose that you could use with the concept of squash and stretch. Oh man, I'm so slow at explaining today. But this is also something where you can clearly see the stretch and the squash. So it gives a lot of visual interest to see the opposites. And what you can also do, so for example, if you have this flower sac right here, you know what, I'm going to take this and create a human body out of it. So first of all, what I need to do is create some space. All right, so we have this pose right here. Okay, so I tried, and again, here's the stretch, here is the squash. So yeah, you can definitely practice using flower sacs first, because it's very easy for them. You don't need to think about anything else. So yeah, you can create all kinds of different emotions and poses using the flower sac, and it's also very easy to do the squash and stretch. And then you can try to implement it in your drawings. Okay guys, I hope you found this helpful. These are the 3 principles that I always try to keep in mind whenever I draw something. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something. I see you next month for hand and feet. Have a beautiful September, and yep, I see you. Bye.